Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Whether East Coast to West Coast, it's still morning everywhere. And we're talking about how some areas have had just intense cold weather and
Ooh.
others are enjoying just happy sunshine. But we're happy you're with us. Today's lead topic is shortage, and we're really thinking of it from a staffing issue. I'd like to welcome you to RPH Ally and the PharmTech 360 channel. We're very excited. This is growing. We know we're at the baseline. We're happy to have you come with us. We like RPH Ally because it is pharmacy focused. So whether you're a pharmacist, a technician, healthcare related professional with an interest in pharmacy, we'd love to have you join. In the PharmTech channel, we've got three primary lines of communication so you can stay in touch with your peers, your colleagues. It's the weekly tech talks on Thursday that we're doing now. We have a monthly webinar the fourth Thursday of every month. That's usually about an hour long. Just had our first one in January called Bloom, Where You Are Planted. And what we did was we invited three technicians from community independent pharmacy who have moved into that operations manager role. And they didn't do it overnight. It was incremental. It was over a few years, but they grew themselves where they were planted and developed their skill set and created paths that didn't exist when they were hired. So those are the kinds of things that we want to bring forward in our PHLI. The third item that we'll be able to connect with you is that we're developing a podcast, and that will take place monthly. It again will be timely topics, but a little bit more in depth. We'll have guests to come and speak about their professional path as a technician, some of the paths they've created or even expanded. So let's get started today with shortage.
Yeah.
It's usually a staffing issue. And the big news is Google, Facebook, Meta, Boeing, Microsoft, they've all laid off people. They're
Yep.
cutting jobs dramatically in the thousands. And how does this relate to pharmacy? Well, it relates to pharmacy because we're hearing the same. We know the term great resignation, and what that meant was many pharmacy professionals left their existing job, whether it was an immediate walkout or a transition away. But for us, when WAGs and CVS and some of the other what we call mass merchandiser pharmacies have announced as they're shortening the hours, let's take a look at that and see what it really is. Number one, these entities are claiming short staff. I believe it's true. I do believe, because I'm in the space of independent community pharmacy. NCPA just released a stat in the last week or so that 80% of independent community pharmacies are having a tough time hiring candidates for technician positions or support staff technicians. We're not going to get into that detail today, but know that that's an option for you. What we really want to say is don't be fearful, be confident, take a look around. We're going to provide a link for what we call a pharmacy professional career interest assessment quiz. It's a really long term to say, hey, what do you like? What are you good at? What do you want to do that you don't know about yet? Because that's what RPH Ally is going to be about. We're focused on the professional. We want you to be a technician who wants to be more, do more, strive for more, and we want to provide those pathways of learning and skill set development for you. So I'm excited about this change because I call it the great pivot. About 18 months ago, I was in brick and mortar. Technician education was a component, really, pharmacy education overall was a component of what I did. And I stepped back because there wasn't enough resources for technicians to move into the advanced roles that they currently find available. And so that's where my focus has been for the last 18 months. So for me, I might have been a number in the great resignation, but I pivoted. I knew what I liked, I knew what I was good at, and I identified where could I serve. And there have been many technicians who have done so. I will tell you one area of growth is what's called central fill. And the chains do have facilities, large facilities, where they're using robotic packaging equipment, hundreds in a minute, hundreds in thousands in an hour. The interesting ratio of pharmacist to technician in a central fill facility is 1 pharmacist for 10 technicians. So build your technology skill set, get familiar with packaging equipment and the reason for it. It's med adherence, it's med sync, it's patient communication and interaction on a phone basis, a messaging basis, and that is a new path for you.
Wow.
Kevin, that's in a nutshell what's rolling in my brain this morning. So,
I tell you what,
anything?
Chris, there's a lot of just golden nuggets there when it comes to what we're dealing with shortages, what we're dealing with opportunities, when it comes to
Mhm,
those things. And, just from my personal experience, when you mentioned getting to know technology or getting to know and become an expert in your space, like that doesn't
mhm,
have to be general, broad scope. I've had technicians that the reason they were so successful at hospitals and irreplaceable
mhm.
wasn't their like previous medication knowledge. It was their technology expertise. It was
Yes.
really making sure that everything in the facility was connected from billing to logistics to payment to finance. All of those things were running through various, machines and operations, all the way from how do I fill something in the beginning? How do I edit that so it's easier for the nurse to get a hold of
Mhm,
it? How do I make it
mhm,
simpler for the provider to order it in the first place? All of those things are really being run through, the technicians I've worked with that really were spearheading that effort. And I love that you bring that up in the central fill model and some of the pneumatic tube models that we're seeing inside of
mhm,
large aggregate
mhm.
systems because there's a real opportunity there. But with the shortages, Chris, like do you know folks? Because I personally know individuals with the shortages that it wasn't that there wasn't enough individuals to fill the gap. It's that being a technician was no longer enjoyable for them. So they moved out of the profession altogether. They were saying, this, I won't name any names, but this large entity or this other large entity does not value me
Mhm.
as an individual. And they were shifting away. Do you feel, Chris, because you said great pivot, which I love. So instead of just shifting out of something that you don't like and then having
Right.
to find a different career path, how do you feel like obviously coming to PharmTech 360 is a great way to say, okay, what do I do next? What do I do with these skills that I've developed?
Mhm.
Other things, Chris, do you feel like we just have to do mentally to be able to connect us with making a pivot?
Well, yes, there are some things. In an attitude, so in January of 2021, when the dissonance and the unsettled feelings were surfacing, I started to think about things. And one of my first thoughts were technicians are leaving because they don't know what else is in front of them. And by January of 2022, that's when I really started seeing questions come forward. So, yes, do I know people? I absolutely do know people. And they reach out to me and say, hey, Chris, what about this? What about that? And technician program coordinators are also they're fielding more calls in terms of saying, can you hook me up? Do you have an alumni? What's going on? So there's new pathways of communication and networking on a professional level. But I will also say, in terms of the space that you're talking about,
Yeah.
there is an area of pharmacy practice that has it's already been growing. It has great potential for even future growth, and that is long-term care pharmacy. That is where technology really is utilized heavily. And there's 2 ways to approach it. Long-term care can be the large facility that is serving multiple senior residence locations. And we know that the pharmacy fulfillment side can be corporate, and the senior communities, as they really prefer to be called, can be a corporate entity as well. But independent community pharmacies within smaller geographic areas that have senior community, living communities, they are doing what's called a combo method. And
Mhm.
they are actually identifying a division within their pharmacy that's long term care. And again, once you're in that long term care space, automated packaging occurs, adherence packaging occurs. You've got, like in hospitals, we have Pyxis and Omnicell, and those inventory management that are controlled by codes and scanners and RFIDs, and we have to manage the inventory that actually comes out of those uh, storage units. We have the same thing in long-term care. So again, the technology is applied very effectively. So if you're in a hospital and you're thinking, I don't really like the way this is going, or there have been cuts or whatever, think about pivoting to a long-term care facility, a living facility, because they can utilize technicians in terms of the equipment. But there are also different states where you are a technician and you can achieve or learn another level of medication patient care service
Wow.
that allows you to handle the meds differently than you can as a technician. You can also think about going with an independent pharmacy that has that LTC connection, working with them and be that liaison that goes on site, that maybe delivers. Delivery drivers are now moving into the realm of being a technician because it's an extension of patient care. I could talk some more. There's a whole new
So,
category called
honestly, the mentality you're talking about right now, Chris, is just recognize that your skills are
yes.
transferable. Like
Mhm.
you have transferable skills that can go into different
Absolutely.
locations and be highly beneficial.
Mhm.
So you did mention something about training programs, which I'm really interested to hear this because I know on the pharmacist side that a lot of pharmacy schools are noticing a massive downward trend that people are not enrolling, they're not getting into pharmacy because I don't think they're seeing the excitement that you and I are of this pivot, right? Is that
Mhm.
exact same thing as you mentioned with the folks that you're in touch with that are doing technician training? Are they also not seeing the same number of students as previous?
It depends on the quality of their program. If they've
Okay.
been a program that has just been getting by,
Yep.
yes, they're definitely seeing a drop. If
Okay.
they are a program that consistently has a high quality of learning, high quality of placement, then their numbers are still solid. But
Understood.
here's the other interesting thing. Some of the programs that were a definite 2-year accredited, community college program or a 1-year very specific accredited program, they're doing specialized training in shorter periods of time. They are pivoting and becoming more student focused and lifestyle focused because of all the virtual tools that we have today.
Got it. Well, Chris, tell us. I know we're running up on our time for today with everybody, and then they can join you hopefully on your
Mhm.
Zoom there on RPH Ally. But
Absolutely.
here's our last slide. It's about this really interesting pharmacy career interest assessment quiz, and I'll pull that up for everybody to see our little
Okay.
graphic. What are we when someone goes and joins RPH Ally and jumps in the PharmTech 360 channel? What is this, Chris? Tell me a little bit more about it.
Well, this is going to be connected to today's specific uh, conversation. We'll call it a conversation today.
Yeah.
Um, in the RPH Ally PharmTech 360 channel, we are developing we're working with a group of experienced technicians and pharmacists who have a technician focus on various specific areas of professional performance. As you know, we have 3 categories. We have the clinical, the business development, and the pioneer. And so there will be individual courses. They might be a 30-minute, a 60-minute, a 1.5 hour. Then there will also be like longer, more in-depth, dive deep kinds of learning that really builds your skill set. But in this quiz, what we want to do is we want to identify what interests you. We're going to have a hyperlink. You'll be able to sign up for RPH Ally for free. Go to the 360 channel, click the assessment quiz. You do not need to be an official paid member to access this information. Come and see what interests you, and then make the decision. What direction do you want to go? How can we support you? Because really, in my view, RPH Ally is different in that we are pharmacy healthcare focused, and we are not the entry level. We are focused on the advanced roles, the more professional standing. So that's where we are, and that's why we brought to the topic today: shortages, pivot, new opportunities. But
Awesome.
also, let's find out. Let's help you find out, what do you like? What's your strength?
Fantastic. So helpful, Chris. It's so nice not to have to look at 1,000 different directions and actually be able to funnel yourself in to be able to say, what do I really want to do next? And this
Mhm.
quiz, I think, is fantastic. And the experts over at PharmTech 360, yourself and Nina, are wonderful guides to be able to help you with that. Any parting words for the audience, Chris?
Thanks for joining us today. You can reach us through the messaging system of RPH Ally. We'll be happy to engage. Take care.
All
See
right.
you next week.
Talk to
Bye
you
bye.
soon. Bye bye.